Hello viewers, I'm your host Uzma Jafri with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show with the 9th BRICS Summit, which was held in the Chinese port city of Xiamen. Member countries pledged to increase cooperation across sectors like trade and investment, monetary policy and sustainable development. BRICS members declaring Jaish-e-Mohammad and Lashkar-e-Taiba terror groups was a major diplomatic victory for India, as it had been persistently pushing for the same across global platforms. We have a report. Executive heads of member countries and emerging economies of the globe gathered in Xiamen for the 9th BRICS Summit. The BRICS Forum, an independent international bloc encouraging commercial, political and cultural cooperation between the member countries, has been meeting regularly. Various documents were signed post the meeting that sought to deepen partnerships among the member states. Addressing the plenary session, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said cooperation was important for peace and development, and India's endeavour was to always work in that direction.
India has also found that technology and digital resources are powerful tools in fighting poverty and corruption. A strong BRICS partnership on innovation and digital economy can help spur growth, promote transparency and support the sustainable development goals.
Modi called on the fellow members to be driving force behind stability, sustainable development and prosperity.
In an environment where we seek stability, sustainable development and prosperity, BRICS leadership will be crucial in driving this transformation. If we as BRICS can set the agenda in these areas, the world will call this its golden decade.
It turned out to be a particularly fruitful summit for India, as Pakistan-based terror outfits Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammad were declared organizations hampering the peace in the region. Taking the Goa Declaration further, all members vehemently criticized the global terrorism and adopted another declaration which said, "We strongly condemn terrorist attacks resulting in death to innocent Afghan nationals. We in this regard express concern on the security situation in the region and violence caused by Taliban, ISIL, Daesh, Al-Qaeda and its affiliates, including Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, the Haqqani Network, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammad and Hizb ut-Tahrir." The declaration came as a shot in the arm for India, as China has repeatedly blocked designation of JEM chief Maulana Masood Azhar as a global terrorist at the United Nations Security Council.
Several paragraphs of the declaration that has been adopted, where the leaders have strongly condemned terrorism, and then they have also been able to identify and acknowledge the pernicious, the deleterious effects that certain terrorist organizations such as the Haqqani Network, Jaish-e-Mohammad, Lashkar-e-Taiba and others have had.
On the sidelines, Modi met Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss the entire gamut of bilateral relations between India and Russia. Both leaders discussed ways to boost bilateral trade and investment, especially in the oil and natural gas sector. Modi also met Chinese President Xi Jinping, where both leaders stressed on the importance of peace and tranquility in the border areas and use of diplomatic means to further strengthen the Indo-China relationship.
We had both agreed that we would not let differences become disputes, and that at a time when the world was changing, we would make sure that India-China relations were a factor of stability. So I think in many ways that was reaffirmed.
The end of the over 2-month-long Doklam standoff had given rise to hope that India and China will try and repair a relationship that has deteriorated as the two countries find their interests diverge and often clash while competing for influence across Asia. Indian Prime Minister later visited Myanmar, where he expressed his concerns over the extremist violence in Rakhine State.
Both India and Myanmar signed 11 agreements across areas including maritime security cooperation to further strengthen their multifaceted partnership. Moving on to Afghanistan, constant attacks, fierce fighting and the resurgent Taliban have forced Washington to change its policy for Afghanistan. Recently, President Trump announced that there will be a surge in the number of US troops in Afghanistan to contain Taliban's expansion in the region. My colleague Ananda Das Gupta spoke to Anil Trigunayat, a former Indian diplomat and expert on international affairs.
Mr. Trigunayat, how do you assess the situation in Afghanistan after the United States has decided to pull in more troops in the country?
You see, unfortunately, the situation in Afghanistan remains somewhat precarious. And we are happy that United States, instead of abdicating its responsibility, has decided to continue to beef up so that certain kind of stability in the area is maintained, because Afghanistan is extremely crucial. I know that this is the longest US war anywhere abroad, but then the situation has also changed, because this is not only just to bring about some regional coherence, but also to fight against terror, which has been continuing there and has been prospering. Taliban has prospered there more effectively. They have taken advantage of the places where there is not enough forces. Although Afghanistan terrain is extremely difficult, but I believe that international community has to come together and has to continue so that the Afghan people's aspirations are fulfilled through an Afghan-led process.
So, do you think that the United States and all the other countries which want peace in Afghanistan should engage in more diplomatic, military and political engagements?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, any attempt which is half-hearted will only create more problems. And therefore, when there was the US administration, they previously decided that they would like to pull out of Afghanistan. Obviously, there was a greater resurgence of Taliban. Secondly, the countries, the major countries, especially the P5 countries and India, they are very actively involved in them, and they should be on the same page. The page is that we need to create a proper stable Afghanistan which is sovereign, and there should be no place for terrorism, which has been increasing there. And if all the countries go all out, because see, the people, it's a very difficult terrain, and unfortunately in the rural areas the current Afghan government's control has been reduced there. There are various warlords, there are all kinds of interest groups and pressure groups and terrorist groups have been operating, and therefore the international community must give its best shot to provide all kinds of assistance, all in political area, so that the political institutions are built in the country, the democracy is further built upon. There should be security which should be available, so that the Afghan forces which are there are further trained, they are further empowered to deal with the situation locally. There should be economic development of the country, so that there are greater opportunities for the people, and there are more opportunities of all kinds for the Afghan people, so that they can lead a happy, peaceful life.
So, do you think that there is any chance for the United States to come hard on Pakistan and eradicate all the terror outfits in the country?
Well, I hope so, that they will do what they are talking about, but as you know that there have been several drone attacks on various Taliban outfits, on various terrorist groups which have been done by the Americans, even within the Pakistani territory, where they are located on the border with Afghanistan. But the terrorism is something which needs that all the countries are on the same page. You cannot have differing opinions, differing definitions for dealing with the terrorist groups. They have to be on the same page, and I would sincerely hope that the American establishment is seized with the matters. The early indications are that they have given enough warning to Pakistan that they must control, rein in and stop their support for these terrorist groups.
President Donald Trump has also asked for India's help in Afghanistan. So, do you think that the Indian military would give any assistance to the United States troops?
Well, if you remember that when they came in 2011, at that time in the wake of 9/11, India has shared all the intelligence with the American and the coalition forces, and we have been continuing to have our collaboration. But India is one of the major benefactor of the Afghan people. We wish well for them. We have been providing the maximum possible assistance, which has exceeded $3 billion a year sometimes. We have built dams there, we have built schools there, we have built parliamentary buildings there, and we are providing more than 1,000 scholarships. So India's role is very much known, and according to the surveys, the Afghan people like Indians. More than 50% would like India to take the lead in these things. But as far as the military option is concerned, I do not personally feel that India would be able to militarily go and support or fight alongside the coalition forces, but we are providing all the assistance to the Afghan forces.
Let's now talk about Pakistan, where every time democracy begins to flourish, it is nipped in the bud. Pakistan recently witnessed the ouster of its Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif over money laundering, corruption and forgery charges. Pakistan's volatile political scenario, the role of its military and terror outfits in the country recently came up for discussion at a seminar in London.
The judiciary-military nexus in Pakistan got a shot in the arm as it successfully ousted sitting Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. The move came under intense scrutiny at a seminar with Democracy in Pakistan, the role of the deep state in London. The seminar saw academicians from Britain and the United States of America get together to discuss the evolution of politics, the role of armed forces, democracy and judiciary in Pakistan. The seminar was organized by Democracy Forum at Senate House. Farzana Sheikh, a Pakistani origin fellow at the Royal Institute of International Affairs, described the country as a bonsai democracy or a state restricted by its environment.
And yet the emergence in the last decade of competing institutional forces in Pakistan that have sought to muscle in on space once thought to be exclusively the preserve of the so-called deep state has arguably made the business of conspiring against democracy far more challenging than at any time in the past.
Mary Karina Lal of London University's Institute of Education said that the Pakistani youth did not seem to choose the system of democracy and there is an inclination towards a pro-order or pro-army view. She also drew attention to the blasphemy law in conservative Muslim country.
Social media between 2009 and 2014 was seen as an arena where there was a level of political engagement. To a certain degree that has been reduced because now any kind of criticism, be it considered blasphemy or be it considered anti-national, carries severe consequences, as we know what happened to the bloggers.
Christina Fair, an associate professor at Washington's Georgetown University, called Sharif's ouster as a judicial coup and said she did not see the judiciary as independent. She also exposed the nexus of jihadi outfits with the country's intelligence agency or ISI and army.
LET and JUD are very close partners with the ISI, not only because of the external objectives of the state, but also because of the internal politics. So in some sense, while it's unexpected if you take them at their word that they would be extending into a political party, it's actually a very natural extension from all of the domestic work that they've been doing, first through JUD and FIF. And there's this really funny speech where, in fact, the rebranding of LET as JUD and FIF have been so successful that Hafiz Saeed had to remark of some of the outreach that was happening in Sindh, oh my gosh, we're actually doing this. Don't forget, it's us doing it. It's not a separate organization. So I think this is really a culmination of the domestic work that they've done under the guises of JUD and FIF.
Hafiz Saeed, the founder of proscribed Lashkar-e-Taiba terror outfit, recently launched Milli Muslim League, a political party in Pakistan. It openly organizes gatherings to spew venom against the United States, India and Afghanistan. The nexus of Pakistan Army, ISI and terror outfits is no secret as they work together to create instability in the region.
Pakistan has failed to establish stable democracy in 7 decades. Moving on to Himalayan nation of Nepal, where the third and the crucial phase of the local polls is round the corner. All parties, including the Rashtriya Janata Party-Nepal, which was formed after an amalgamation of 6 Madhesh-based parties, are gearing up for the polls in Terai region. We have a report.
Various political parties of Nepal are out for the campaigning for the third and final phase of the local body elections in the Terai region of Nepal. All leaders and parties have been reaching out to the common people in order to win the mandate after the third phase of local polls. According to the country's election commission, more than 18,000 people filed nominations for elections in the number 2 province of the Himalayan nation. Rashtriya Janata Party-Nepal, which had boycotted the first 2 phases of the local polls, unveiled its election manifesto, acknowledging the power of people which they claim was the driving force for their participation in election.
Local election देखि लिएर संसदीय निर्वाचनसम्म हामी बहिष्कारमा थियौं बहिष्कारबाट हामी निर्वाचनमा आयौं त्यसको मुख्य कारण यहाँलाई पहिले नै हामी 7 गते नै बताइसक्या हो र यो निर्वाचनलाई यो चुनावलाई पनि एउटा संघर्षको रूपमा हामीले स्वीकार गरेका हो जनताको बीचमा गएर यसलाई आन्दोलनको रूपमा स्वीकार गरेका हो चुनौतीको रूपमा स्वीकार गरेका हो किनभने सडक संघर्ष त हाम्रो जारी छ त्यो रहन्छ अझ कठोरतम संघर्ष हामी गर्छौं.
RJP Nepal had agreed to participate in the local elections only after deal was reached with the government that they will support constitution amendment tabled in the parliament. A faction of the party still believes that they should boycott these elections. However, majority believes that elections are the essence of democracy and any prevailing law can be defeated through democratic means. Madhesh parties have been demanding an amendment in the constitution which was promulgated in 2015. They have been seeking more political representation for the people of the southern plains and withdrawing of the provincial boundaries.
आधारमा हाम्रो संविधान यहाँ बनाइयो र जुन आधारमा संशोधन प्रस्तावलाई असफल गरियो त्यो जनताको मत देखाएर असफल पारिएको संविधान संशोधनको प्रस्ताव निर्माण गर्दा पनि 90% भनेर 2/3 भन्दा बढी हाम्रो केरे जनताको मत को आधारमा कांग्रेस एमाले माओवादी जस्ता प्रमुख पार्टीले त्यो धन्दा गरे र संशोधन प्रस्ताव पनि त्यही अहंकारमा जनताको मतलाई देखाएर जुन संविधान संशोधनका जुन विषयवस्तु त्यसलाई अस्वीकार गरिएको थियो त्यसैले जनताको मतको महत्व लाई हामीले पनि बुझेका छौं र त्यसैले हामी जनताको बीचमा जाने निर्णय गरेका छौं.
The province number 2, which is the mainland for the Madhesh-based parties, will go to polls on September 18. Earlier, the government, under the leadership of Pushpa Kamal Dahal, split the election into 3 phases as the agitating parties threatened to boycott the polls. The agitating parties at that time have demanded for the swift amendment of the constitution to ensure their participation in the election.
As per the constitution obligations, Nepal has to conduct the local, provincial and parliamentary elections by January 2018. To get an insight into the Nepal elections, we are now joined by Prakash Acharya, a political analyst in Kathmandu, who has been closely observing the situation. Mr. Acharya, what challenges do you see ahead at the time of holding final phase of local elections?
Basically, I don't see any challenges right now as that Madhesh-based political parties, including that Rashtriya Janata Party, they were not ready for participating in the elections, but now they are now ready to participate in the elections. They are being participated in election campaigns. That's why I don't see any kind of that challenges. Besides, there are some rebel and underground groups. They may pose some kind of threat, but it is yet to be seen whether they are able to pose any threat or not. In general, there is no any challenges right now to hold the third level of elections.
The people in the Terai region have been demanding amendments in the constitution for their equal rights. Do you foresee any change in the policy after these elections?
Okay, the elections of local bodies are being held after 20 years, and it will definitely help to put the local bodies in place and deal with the people's local problems. Besides that, the people of Terai or plain areas, they were basically protesting with their agendas, different agendas. Now they are getting participated in the polls, and it will help them to bring them in mainstream politics. And furthermore, Furthermore, it will have a great bearing on the implementation of constitution. Since this elections is going to be held under the new constitutions, it will be the starting point of implementation of new constitution, and I hope this will definitely help to maintain peace, law and order, and it may help to set the development agendas as well.
Thank you, Mr. Acharya. Moving back to India, a land of diverse religion, language and culture. Recently, people across the country celebrated Onam, a harvest festival. Elaborate feasts, folk songs, elegant dances, energetic games are part of the dynamic festival celebrated for 10 days.
Shops filled with fragrance of beautiful flowers marks the arrival of the 10-day-long Onam festival in the South Indian state of Kerala. Onam is an annual celebration of the homecoming of mythical king Mahabali, who is believed to come from the nether world to check on his citizens. As part of the celebrations, people clean and decorate their houses with flowers. They also throng temples and perform various rituals as a part of 10-day-long celebration of the harvest festival. The tourism department believes that the festival has gained a lot of prominence over the years and efforts are being put to establish Onam as a tourism festival.
We are trying to establish Onam as a tourism festival wherein we would like to have many people across the country coming and celebrating Onam here.
The festival also sees an array of traditional delicacies on the banana leaf. A 9-course feast called Ona Sadhya is thoroughly enjoyed and is considered to be the main course of the festival. This year, scores of foreign tourists also joined the locals to celebrate the festival.
There is a sun, there is a boat, there is a water, very friendly, so much people. Enjoy.
I noticed in India they like bright colors and a lot of colors, so that's something different.
Cultural functions and competitions are organized for both men and women during the festival. The men dress up as mythical king Mahabali. On the other hand, women are seen performing a Thiruvathira Kali dance, Kerala's traditional dance form. Onam celebrations start on Atham Day, 10 days before Thiruvonam, which is the most important day of Onam, which marks the summer or rice harvest. Onam falls in the month of Chingam, which is the first month of the Malayalam calendar.
The Government of India promotes Onam internationally in a big way. Now, I take your leave with some images of annual food and craft festival in Leh city of India's Jammu and Kashmir state. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.